It was late, one of those evenings when the world feels impossibly tired, and the house seems to breathe heavier than the people in it. The kettle had just finished boiling, its sharp whistle still ringing in my ears as I poured hot water into my chipped white mug. The mug was old, the kind you hold with both hands on cold mornings, a gift from my mother years ago, with a tiny faded rose painted on the side. I kept it not for how it looked, but for what it held, a sense of steadiness, warmth, memory. I didn't know then how important that mug would become, how it would follow me through that night like a quiet witness. The clock read 8:42 p.m. The living room was dim except for the lamp near the sofa, casting soft light on the carpet. Outside, the sky was a deep, bruised navy, the kind right before a storm decides whether to arrive or leave. I wasn't expecting anything unusual. I wasn't expecting anything at all, really. Life with Armin had become predictable in its unevenness, waves of silence, brief moments of normal, then tension building again like a pressure valve no one touched. I took a slow sip from the mug, letting the warmth spread through me. I was trying to stay present, trying to keep the evening calm, trying not to think about the way he had been distancing himself for months. Ever since his new job started, the hours he spent away multiplied, but the time he spent with me felt thinner, more strained. Our conversations had become short, clipped, practical. Sometimes it felt like speaking to him required stepping carefully around an invisible crack in the floor. One wrong movement, and everything would fall through. When he walked into the room that night, his footsteps were quick, loud, carrying that familiar edge they carried when he didn't want to talk but also didn't want silence. He tossed his keys on the table with a sharp clatter and let out a breath that felt too heavy for a simple day at work. I set my mug down, bracing myself without meaning to. "Is everything okay?" I asked softly. He didn't answer right away. He just looked at me, his eyes filled with something tired, or something angry. I couldn't tell. Not anymore. Then he said it, the sentence that would echo inside me long after the words faded. "You're lucky I even stay with you." He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The calmness in his tone made it worse. It was like he had thought about it, decided it, and now simply stated it as fact. My breath caught. Not in shock, but in the quiet way a heart reacts when it already sensed something breaking but hoped it wouldn't. I didn't argue. I didn't fight. I didn't even ask why. I just felt the world shift slightly under my feet, like the house had tilted and I needed to grab onto something to stay upright. The mug was still warm in my hands, so I held it tighter, grounding myself. The rose on the side pressed against my palm like a reminder of something softer, something I used to believe in. He walked past me, heading toward the hallway, muttering about how he needed space, how he didn't understand why everything felt suffocating. I stayed still, letting the silence spread through the house like cold air. I thought of the years we'd spent together, all the small routines that once made us feel like a team. The Sunday breakfasts, the grocery runs, the late-night movie marathons. I thought of the promises we made, whispered on rooftops and in cars when the world still felt like something we were building together. Somewhere along the line, those promises had faded into the background, replaced with responsibilities and exhaustion. And now words like "lucky I stay," I didn't cry. I didn't have the space inside me for tears. Instead, I just felt hollow, like someone had scooped out the softest parts of me and left the shell behind. An hour later, my phone buzzed. It was a message from his sister, Miriam. "Can I come over?" "It's important," I hesitated. She rarely came without calling ahead. We had always been close in a quiet, comfortable way. She was the one who helped me choose my wedding dress, the one who listened when I felt overwhelmed, the one who told me once, "You deserve gentleness." Always. I told her she could come. When she arrived, she didn't knock the way she normally did. She tapped twice and stepped in quickly, her face pale with worry. The moment she saw me, her expression softened, but her eyes filled with something else, something like guilt. "What happened?" I asked. She held her coat tight around her shoulders, biting her lip as she looked at me with a kind of sorrow that made my chest tighten. "There's something you need to know," she said quietly. "And I didn't want you to hear it from anyone else." I felt my pulse quicken. The mug trembled slightly in my hands. I didn't realize I had been holding it this whole time. "Tell me," I said. She took a seat on the couch but didn't relax into it. She sat straight, hands clasped so tightly her knuckles were white. "It's about Armin," she began. The air felt heavier suddenly, like the walls were leaning in. She swallowed, gathering courage. "He's been talking to people about you, about your marriage." My breath stilled. "What kind of things?" I whispered. She looked at me with eyes full of apology. "Things he shouldn't be saying. Things that aren't true." She paused, and in that pause I already felt the floor inside me begin to crack. "Miriam," I whispered, "tell me." She exhaled shakily. "He's been telling people that he feels trapped, that he stays with you out of obligation, that you don't bring anything to the relationship, that you should be grateful he hasn't left." For a moment, everything inside me went quiet. Not blank, not shocked, just eerily still, like the world holds its breath right before something shatters. I felt the warmth from the mug leaving my hand slowly, replaced with a coldness that crawled up my arms. Miriam continued, her voice trembling now. "He said it today, too. To his friends. I overheard everything. He sounded so cruel, so unlike himself. And I couldn't let you sit here not knowing." "I'm so sorry." The tears didn't come instantly. Instead, I felt this strange mix of numbness and clarity, like a fog lifting in the worst possible way. Hearing those words earlier was one thing. Knowing he had rehearsed them for an audience, knowing he had been lowering me in the eyes of others, knowing he saw me as a burden, not a partner, that cut deeper than the sentence itself. I put the mug down slowly on the table before my shaking hands dropped it. The little rose glinted under the lamp, a tiny symbol of something fragile and fading. "He said all that?" I whispered. She nodded. "I wish I didn't hear it. I wish I could unhear it. But you needed to know." I closed my eyes, letting the truth settle in like a bitter wind. All the moments I blamed myself for his distance. All the days I tried harder, quieter, softer. All the times I minimized my needs so he wouldn't feel overwhelmed. I thought I was protecting our marriage, not realizing I was protecting it alone. Miriam reached out and held my hand. "You deserve better than what he's giving you," she said gently. "You deserve someone who chooses you with love, not with resentment." Her words cracked something open in me. Not pain, not yet, but realization. For too long, I had treated his coldness like a passing season, something I just had to wait through. But now I saw it clearly. This wasn't weather. This was erosion. Slow, consistent, deliberate erosion of my worth in his eyes. When she left, the house felt heavier than before. The hallway lights cast long shadows, the kind that stretch across the floor like quiet reminders of everything you can't unhear. I walked to the bedroom where he had fallen asleep, fully dressed, his phone still in his hand. The sight of him, peaceful, unaware, made something inside me twist painfully. I didn't wake him. Instead, I picked up my rose mug, cradling it in my hands. The warmth had faded, but the memory of warmth remained. It reminded me of mornings when love felt simple, when two people shared their hopes without hesitation. That little rose had watched me through years of tenderness, years of disappointment, and now, this. It became a symbol I didn't expect, the fragile thing I was still holding even as everything else cracked. Over the next few days, the truth settled deeper. I watched him move through the house like a guest, leaving messes behind as though someone else would pick them up. I watched him scroll through his phone instead of looking at me when I spoke. I watched the way he avoided my eyes when I stood too close, like closeness had become something unbearable. And I realized something quietly painful. I wasn't lucky he stayed. I was lonely he stayed. He stayed physically, but not emotionally. Not respectfully. Not faithfully. Not lovingly. One evening, as he sat on the couch, complaining about his day without asking about mine, I looked at him and felt something shift inside me. Something steady, something final. I stood up. He looked annoyed. "Where are you going?" "Somewhere I should have gone the moment you forgot how to speak to me," I answered softly. He frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I didn't try to convince him to see the pieces of me he had stopped acknowledging. Instead, I walked to the kitchen, picked up the rose mug, my small, constant symbol, and placed it into my bag. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud. But it was real. I left the house that night with nothing but my wallet, my phone, and the mug that had held every version of me through the years. I stayed at my sister's place, where the silence felt safe and the walls didn't echo his disappointment. In the days that followed, I expected sadness to consume me, but instead something else grew, a slow, surprising clarity. Miriam visited me again, tears in her eyes. "I'm proud of you," she whispered. I know this wasn't easy. I held the mug and nodded. Its tiny rose felt like a small reminder of the woman I was before marriage chipped pieces away. A reminder that gentleness didn't mean weakness, and staying didn't mean loyalty if the love wasn't returned. Months passed, and little by little I rebuilt myself. Every morning I drank tea from that same mug, the same chipped rim, the same faded rose, and every morning it reminded me of everything I survived. Everything I chose to walk away from rather than shrink beneath. Sometimes healing arrives quietly. Sometimes it arrives in the form of a truth told by someone who loves you enough to risk your heartbreak. Sometimes it arrives the moment you decide that loneliness with someone is worse than peace by yourself. And sometimes it hides in a chipped mug with a fading rose, reminding you that even fragile things can carry strength, and even broken things can begin again.